วัสดีค่ะ Welcome to Be My Guest and I'm สดชื่น Lim Green Guy. Today we are at TDRI who recently have made changes to their working space by using a Thai startup company called Paperspace to help them achieve this change. What is this change about and the concept behind it? Let's find out more with our guests today. In today's episode, we are joined by two guests. One of our guests is Dr. Duenden Nikhom-Barirak, Research Director of Economic Governance, TDRI. And our other guest is Mr. Sombat Ngam Chalermsak, co-founder of Paperspace. สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีค่ะ
Thank you for joining us today. First of all, let me ask you, since you're the co-founder of Paperspace, to explain to us what Paperspace is.
Sure. So I'm the interior designer in Trent. So I've been in this business for 20 years. And recently I think I want to share the way people do business in design industry by transforming ourselves into a platform.
Okay.
So we create infrastructure for design entrepreneur to run business on us. So that's what we do at the moment.
I see. So is Paperspace, design spaces for only companies in Thailand or also outside Thailand?
We are operating in 3 major cities at the moment, Bangkok, Manila, and Singapore. Mm-hmm. So we are working with clients across the borders, including Facebook and Google at the moment.
I see. So can you elaborate about your ideas and concepts of your company here?
The idea is, people change from instead it become we in that economy now. So people start sharing, collaborating. So it rely on individual people at the moment. Mm-hmm. So the model is we want to attract those talent in the market,
I see.
Combine them together and create kind of a platform for them to work together as a big group rather than like a single one.
I see, like a traditional working space.
Yeah, exactly.
You rather have a group of people working together.
So we have the consultants ranging from change management, workplace strategy, designer, engineer working with us at the moment.
I see. So this would contribute to the new economy.
Yeah, exactly.
So many people, many of our viewers might not be familiar with new economy. So can you explain to us what new economy is?
Yeah, from my point of view, the new economy is people change the way we live. Mm-hmm. You wake up in the morning and then you use like a lot of things that you never used in the past. You rely on this like mobile.
True.
You book or your transportation via applications. Mm-hmm. You order food. So those kind of things is happen at the moment, and mm-hmm. people change, and the company has to be changed based on that economic.
I see. So now let's talk about TDRI. So how this collaboration between Paperspace happened?
Well, the collaboration is basically we are looking for a change in our image mm-hmm. and also the usage of our space at our office, which is about 30 years old and has never been changed.
Okay.
So we were looking for somebody who can renovate and change the entire image of our office space.
I see.
And so I think we came to a meeting here at TCDC mm-hmm. where designers such as Paperspace would meet with potential customers, and that's where we met.
I see. So why Paperspace though?
It's a little bit difficult to choose which designer for us because we are a research institution, which is rather uncommon, and I don't think Paperspace actually has clients unique as us. We're not business.
Yes.
We're not foundation. We're in the middle.
Yeah.
We're semi-academic, semi-business a little bit. So our needs are very specific. We have a lot of researchers who mm-hmm. need to concentrate when they work.
Yes,
but at the same time, they need to interact to be able to exchange ideas and develop new ones. Mm-hmm. So we have very specific needs. And so we looked at many potential designers, and most of them would design for businesses. Mm-hmm. Didn't fit our need exactly, but then we met Paperspace. We have pictures of their past work, mm-hmm. and we thought that fit very well with what we were looking for.
I see. So that is how it happened, basically.
That's correct. Meeting here at TCDC and then also discussing later on and to see whether when we communicate what kind of image, what kind of usage we would like Paperspace was able to respond. That means they understand our needs.
I see. So since she mentioned that TDRI is in between everything, business and also academic here.
Yep.
Is it a tough job for you to create a space?
Not really. Actually, our client is very varies from education, MNC to entrepreneurs.
Yes.
So each client has their own specific needs. So what we normally do is we try to understand the deep needs that they want.
I see.
Different client has their different needs.
Yes.
So for TDRI, like Dr. Didin mentioned, they are researchers, so they need time to focus. At the same time, they need time to collaborate. So that is kind of like the big takeaway from us, the objective that we transform that space to serve these two functions in
I see.
balance.
I see. So what did you take into consideration before designing TDRI?
First, we observe what they work, how do they work at the moment, and somehow we benchmark to the new whatever is happening in the world.
Yeah.
So we try to bring that productivity into the new way of working.
I see.
Yeah.
So you try to put something new as well into what they already
because we're
have.
working with Google and Facebook, and we know what's going on in the world.
I
So we
see.
pick what suits to each client to work with them.
I see, I see. So now back to TDRI. Since you mentioned earlier that the space hasn't been renovated or changed for 30 years.
That's correct.
So what did you expect from making this change?
First is that the way it was designed 30 years ago was to cater to researchers that you imagine professors in university,
Very traditional
Yes,
way.
with lots of books, lots of paper. But then we find that we need to attract new blood into our research. And the Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z, they don't like to work with papers. It's a paperless world.
Yes.
So when they come in, and then we do have interview with those who leave or those who applied, see what is it that does TDI meet their expectations in several ways. And one of the response we had was that TDI seems very modern because we have a very modern website. We have very modern infographics presentation when we appear in the public. But they said they're somewhat disappointed when they actually come and visit us. They say it's a different world. It seems so traditional and archaic. So we realized that if we want to attract new researchers, then we really need to change the image of our building, and that's what we required.
I see. So can you tell us a bit of the highlights of the changes that have been made here?
The highlights is that we got rid of all the papers.
Okay.
I think about several tons.
That's a lot.
we made a rule that people have only so much space to keep their books. Professors like to keep all the stuff.
Of course.
So now the new design is that very open space now. We can see through from one corner of the building to the very end. Before there were a lot of corners, a lot of dark spots.
I see.
And because of that, people would split into different enclaves, and they would eat and chat and work in that enclaves.
I see.
But now it's open. So if you eat, if you talk, if you sleep, everybody can see you.
Okay.
So it becomes more professional, is that this is a workspace. But then we have space for you to eat, very nice cafe upstairs. We have place for you to exercise. We have place to chat. So now I feel that activities are becoming more organized in
I see.
partition into a different space rather than everything, because we used to have cubicles. So everybody used to hide behind cubicles and do everything there. So I think this was a big change.
I see. So everything is designated.
Designated, yes, properly.
I see.
Food from talk, from discussion. And
Yeah.
we noticed that a lot of our researchers in the past would go to Starbucks. We have an office, but they work in Starbucks.
Yeah.
So I say, why? I say, because we have nice space, office, relaxed environment. So we created space similar to Starbucks on our
Okay.
5th floor so that they don't have to go out. And we have very good coffee too.
I see. Well, we'll take a quick break here, and when we come back, we'll talk more.
Okay.
Welcome back to the program. We are still here with Mr. Sombat and Ajahn Dunden. Welcome back to the program. So we already talked about the overview of TDRI and your company. And you mentioned earlier that you worked for Google before. So can you tell us about that experience?
Sure. So we had been designed two office for Google in Manila and Jakarta, and we start doing the third one now. So
Okay.
each of them is about like 16,000, which is a huge
Very.
size of workplace. So talking about Google, if you design Google Office, you need to read the Bible, the Google Bible. They call
There's
Google
a Bible.
Yeah, it's the Bible for
Okay.
designers to read, and you have to kind of understand them very deeply. And one important thing that I took from that book is that they just say that ideas aren't always happen on the desk. So that's a very key takeaway. So you notice that you Google Office in the website, you will see a different kind of office design, which is not the same.
I've heard as well that
Yeah.
Google actually have a very unique working space.
So the rule is you can't do the same thing with the previous office. So if you design a new office, it has to be totally new concept, new design, because they believe that if people live and work in that environment, they will come up with something new. And
I see.
I think apart from the workplace, the way they work is very interesting. They have the rule of 10%. They allow their workers to do whatever they want to do in 10% of their work hours that they can key in, which is not related to their work jobs.
So anything they want to
Anything they
do.
want, and if something kind of has potential to grow, they will take that seriously and grow up. And Gmail is one of that. Gmail is sideline of one engineer working in different field, but
very
they come up with this.
interesting.
Yeah.
I
So
see.
it's very interesting the way they, and you see like in Google they have breakout, canteen, cafe, espresso,
Yeah.
spa, even
Wow.
the pet shop.
Pet
yeah.
shop.
Yeah, the campus has everything.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. So was it challenging for you to take up this job, especially when you mentioned that you already done 3,
Yeah,
right?
I've
And
done
each
2,
yeah,
yeah.
each one has to be a new concept. So is it challenging for
This
you?
is very challenging. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, but it's quite fun to generating something new, whereby Facebook is the other way around. Facebook, you have to follow the rule exactly. The size of the room has to be that square meters. You can't even change it like in
So
millimeters.
buy the book.
By the book. Yeah.
I
So
see.
you will realize that these two giants are different, and we learn a lot from them in different way,
I see.
and we apply that know-how to our client here.
I
as well.
see. I see. So talking about that, it sounds like TDRI now has a very perfect space, like very new, very unique,
That's
and of
right.
course can be, let's say, one of a kind in Thailand right now. So what has been the feedback so far?
The feedback, I think researchers, especially the younger generation, I think they are much more, they are happier in a happier environment. And I have heard from those that have resigned and left and said, oh, I should just, return. because-
Reapply again.
Reapply for a new position because we have a very completely new look now and they're very happy. So I think the response has been very positive. And we also not only, I think when we did the renovation, it's not only to attract qualified researchers, but also the project of our image to outsiders.
I see.
I think this is very important. When we have visitors from outside, TDR gets a lot of visitors from the embassies, even from senators from the United States. They visit
I
us,
see.
and government officials, big companies. So I think if we want to project that TDRI is, the frontline research institute, we need to project that image too.
I see.
So I think it's after we have the renovation, we are happy, we feel confident when we invite people, please come to TDRI before,
I
you know,
see.
we weren't too confident
Yeah.
about that. So I think this has been a very positive change.
I see. So you mentioned earlier that, the younger researchers were happy. What about the older generation? How did they adapt to this change?
We had a little bit, as I'm sure every place will face certain resistance.
Yes.
Because those who are accustomed to the old environment and they don't want to change.
Yes.
But I think it was, luckily, we closed our building down for 6 months.
Okay.
Before we said we're not going to close, we're just switching from different floors. But in the end, we decided that it would take too long if we do that, and the noise and the smell of paint, it just wouldn't work.
Yes.
So we decided to close the office down 6 months, and we rented the next place next to TDI.
Okay.
Because of that, 6 months was very useful because people are detached from their space.
Okay.
You know,
Such strategy.
It really helps because if you let them there, sit there, and then suddenly you take away the room, you
True.
change, they feel very attached. But now nobody had proper space for 6 months. We were in a very small townhouse for 6 months, so everybody eventually just melted away this kind of
see.
possessiveness and attachment. So it was much better after
I
that.
see.
Yeah.
So now, talking about working habits, do you think it is related, the working environment and the working habits of the people in it?
Yes, I think the environment really affects the productivity of our workers. And I'm sure that many places may not think that way, and
Yeah.
they think, they just want to cut costs. But productivity, I think it's very important that our staff, our employee works in an environment where they can perform their function properly. They can concentrate when they need to concentrate. They can relax when they want to relax. They can talk to their peers when they need to talk. So they have many kind of environment that they need in the workplace.
I see.
So I think that's very important.
I see.
Any management should not overlook the importance of the working environment for the productivity of their employees.
I see. So now going back to Paperspace a little bit, people who have traditional companies, let's say, which is very business oriented, is not like TDRI, it's not like Google. Do you think Paperspace can create something that is a bit different than a cubicle, than an office room, to enhance the working ability of their workers?
Sure. I think all the business has potential to do that. It's only like we discussed. It's only the leadership mindset.
True.
If they see that thing, I think we are able to convert any space into like Google type of space for sure. Yeah.
I see. So it's all about the mindset.
It's all about the mindset.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I see.
Space doesn't really has constraint at all.
I see. Well, we'll take a quick break again here, and when we come back, we'll talk more.
Sure.
Welcome back to the program. So now we've entered our third and last break here. So we already talked about the changes that have been made. And of course, once you have a changing environment in a working space, the management also needs a bit of a change as well. So how has TDRI changed its management system here?
I think the renovation of TDR is just more than just an infrastructure change. It also signals a change in, I would say, decentralization of the management of our institute, in that because now we have the infrastructure, meaning we have meeting rooms, we have town halls, we have coffee shops. So now we encourage our junior level of employees, our young researchers, to initiate their own ideas about what we want to promote is learning organization. And there are many ways in which you can learn. You can learn from your peers, you can learn from your seniors in your office, or you can learn from outsiders. So now we have many activities after we opened our building. Now we have invited well-known speakers, authors of interesting books to give talks in our town hall. And we also ask our researchers to initiate their own activities. What do they want to want? They want to have a book club, they want to exchange ideas, they want to share what they're researching or discuss key public policy issues. So I think because we have provided infrastructure, we have provided an environment, so now we hope that our employees, our researcher will make use to build TDRI as a learning organization, which we talk about the new economy. New economy focus on innovation and new ideas. So now we have the proper infrastructure to facilitate that learning organization.
I see. So now talking about Thailand a little bit, mostly the companies and offices or organizations are working in a traditional office space, which they're not so fortunate to have, like, you know, a space like TDRI. So according to your experiences where you work with international companies, how do you think Thailand can use some of that ideas or their concepts to improve their working environment?
Sure. There's a new trend that's happening in the world now called activity-based workplace, AWB. Is kind of like the workplace that serve the activities, not the role. Means there's space for you to work, to focus, to meet, to learn, to social, but that kind of serve the activities. So you don't have your own dedicated desk.
I see.
With that, you can play with the space that you have in different way, and somehow you can occupy more people into that space as well.
I see.
Yeah.
True though, because you know the real estate sector here, the prices of
Yeah,
land
it's
and
rising
space
up,
is
yeah.
rising. So in order to have like an open space and people can just choose where they want and come whenever they want is a great way indeed.
And the research said that actually 70% of the people stay on the desk, 30% is out most of the time.
I see. So can you explain to us a little bit more about the activity-based workplace? What is this idea?
The idea is if you have limited space, the space should serve the real activities, not the role.
Okay.
So in Airbnb, let's say we did 400 square meters office for Airbnb in Beijing. So they have space to work, to conference call, to do training. So those are within these 400 square meters, but they can serve 50 people, which is a lot. So people come in the morning, Airbnb staff, they put their stuff in the lockers and they choose the activity that they want on that moment, whether they want to sit on a desk to send emails, or they go for a phone booth to do a conference call, and they go back, or they change. So it's kind of very fluid. Activities happen in one single space.
I see. Which, to be honest, space, you feel like you utilize the most out of that space, especially when you have limited space as well. I see. So now back to TDRI. Since you have all these changes, are you content with the change already? Are you planning any future changes?
I think we just opened our office maybe 1 month, so we have to now just learn about the new environment. Future changes, we're talking about activity-based, and I think this has to be gradual, because I think it's a big change for somebody who used to have a table and suddenly they don't have a table. They used to have a picture of my family here, and I have my little own world, and suddenly I don't. So I think we have to feel that out. But I think with this innovation, we're gradually moving towards that direction, because we're downsizing personal space with the new innovation. We have lockers, that's mentioned. So now your stuff can, part of it can be in a locker, which means you don't have to pile everything on your table. So I think this is sort of like a slow, gradual move towards becoming activity-based. I think whether we can handle activity-based or not, it depends on the working habit of the new generation. And I can already see that they are not so attached to their tables or their private space as much as do the older generations. Because, for example, we have the option for our new researchers whether they want a PC or they want a laptop. So none of them want PC now, even though they have assigned table. They said, I prefer a laptop. So that's a big change, because if you ask the same question, maybe 5 years ago, everybody wants a PC on the top. And also I noticed that many of my researchers are no longer at their table. I don't know where they are, because they're on the 5th floor somewhere. So I'm beginning to see that the new habit of working that may, in the future, can become activity-based, as Kun Sombat said.
I see. So now back to Paperspace here. What are your future projects? Is there anything up and coming that you're working on?
We are expanding to India this year, so we already have the partner to expand our business to India. India is a huge market. So I think we will have 4 countries representative at the moment, and I think the number of people who working with us is going to be increasing this year, including the projects
I
Yeah.
see. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing with us your information and knowledge. ขอบคุณค่ะ
ขอบคุณมากครับสวัสดีครับ
Workplace transformation is an emerging trend that tries to enhance the mentality and working habits of the workforce. TDRI manages to understand this concept and has tried to put this concept into their working environment, hoping to enhance their workforce. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. See you next time. สวัสดีค่ะ